Hello, I'm
Good evening.
Dan Rappaport.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Anthony Sitko. I'm with Stokes Creative Group. We are the public outreach consultant on this project. Thank you for joining us. We're going to get started in just a couple minutes. We'll give another couple moments for what we imagine to be some stragglers to come on in.
So we have DVRPC, we have Maria. Maria, if you want to promote Maria to the panelist. And then we do have our county executive if you want to promote him.
Maria Connolly?
Yes.
Okay.
Maria Connolly and Daniel Benson.
Okay. Maria Connolly, I'll make a host. Daniel Benson, I'll make a host. Okay.
Thanks, Anthony.
Yep. I'm also getting notifications that we have two people trying to requesting to record this meeting with Otter AI.
Otter AI.
Yeah, Otter.ai.
Yeah, I think what that is it's an AI, it's a narrative that's generated by AI.
Mm-hmm.
It's really
like a speech to text kind of thing, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Because we're recording the session anyway, and we're going to put it up on the website. So they want to record it. It shouldn't matter.
I mean, it's a public session. I have no problems.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
It's if somebody brought a microphone to a public meeting and ran it through AI afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, we'll get started at 6:05. Give everybody a few more minutes to join in.
Yep.
And Anthony, are you able to, is the chat open? Can we?
Chat should be open.
Okay.
Yes. Chat is.
Okay.
Chat is open.
Hey, Matt. Just in case, Spencer's here too, so we may want to introduce him.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to introduce DVRPC.
Yep.
Am I making Spencer a host?
And he's already here. He may just say, you want to just say hi when we introduce DVRPC, Spencer?
Sure, that works for me.
All right. Thanks.
Andrew, when's our next coordination meeting for this one? Is it 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay.
We could always meet earlier.
We could do a summary of the meeting.
Yeah.
All right, we'll get started in just a moment. Again, thanks everyone. We appreciate your patience. And I'll run through the housekeeping rules, such as they are, before we get formally underway. Okay, well, it's 6:05 p.m. and in the interest of everybody's time, we will officially get started. So thank you, everyone, and good evening. Appreciate you taking the time out to join this meeting. My name is Anthony Sitko. I'm Senior Manager of Public Outreach with Stokes Creative Group. We are the public outreach consultant on this project, this meeting for the Johnson Trolley Trail Corridor. This is the second public meeting The project team, who will introduce themselves in just a moment, is going to run through a presentation on the project, provide an update on status, and go over some of the proposed alternatives. And then at the end of the presentation, there will be an opportunity for a Q&A session and feedback. So at this time, I'm going to turn things over to, I believe, Matt, right? I'm starting off. Yes, Matt Zukowski with Mercer County, who will give, again, an introduction of the project team and run through things before turning it over to the project design consultant.
Okay, thank you, Anthony. Good evening, everybody. On behalf of Mercer County and the Johnson Trolley Trail Project team, I'd like to thank everyone for attending our second Public Information Center this evening, especially for attending on such a warm and beautiful night as tonight. It's been a while since we were able to enjoy weather like this in Mercer County, so thank you for attending. My name is Matthew Zukowski. I'm a principal planner here at Mercer County, helping to manage this project on the county side. I also have with me several other county staff members I'd like to introduce. From our planning office, we have our Director of Planning, Maria Connolly, and our planning trainee, Benson Yoe. From our engineering division, we have County Engineer, Mr. Bazzi Muzaffar, who we commonly refer to as Sonny. And we have Mr. Jason Mildenberg, our Assistant County Engineer. And we're also very lucky to have our County Executive, Mr. Dan Benson, on the call this evening. Executive Benson has been incredibly supportive of this effort, and I'd like to thank him for attending tonight. So actually, before we continue, I'd like to pass this off to Executive Benson if he has a few words to say.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I just wanted to.
Can you hear me okay? Okay. I just want to say thank you to Matt and to the entire planning and engineering team. I want to thank DVRPC and obviously the Lawrence Hopewell Trail and all the efforts for all the stakeholders on the Johnson Trolley line. This really is both kind of a unique opportunity, both historically as well as just a great opportunity for all different levels of government working together, state, local, federal, regional, and at the county level as well. And what we're mostly excited about with this project is not only is this putting something that historically really brought together so many different municipalities when it was the Johnson Trolley line in operation, we have a chance to once again reestablish that, reconnect communities that were separated from 295, while at the same time create a true multimodal trail network that allows folks not just for recreation, but to use these trails to access community services, to access retail, to access quality of life improvements in the area, and to jobs. And so, you know, it's rare that we get to have trail work like this, that we get to do all the above. And this one has kind of a unique opportunity as well with a bridge. But tonight we're going to talk about kind of the pathway that leads both from the north section and the south section connecting. And you'll hear about some of the alternatives that have come up so that we can get your feedback. And that's really important part of this process. We want this to be a success for all of Mercer County's residents and those that visit. And so your both participation today and at the first session really is key to how we've gotten here and us getting to a successful implementation of this. So I just want to thank everyone for participating. Again, I just want to say we have a great team at the county moving this forward, and we're really excited for the presentation today. So I'm going to turn it back over to Matt. Again, just to say thank you so much for everyone being here.
Okay, thank you, sir. Glad you were able to make it to our meeting. So I went over to county staff. I'd like to also introduce a great partner we've had on this effort, Mr. David Sandahl, who is the chairman for the board of the Lawrence Hopewell Trail. As many of you know, the Lawrence Hopewell Trail is it's a treasure within Mercer County. And it's an incredible asset that took over 20 years to realize, countless volunteers to make happen. So the LHT, I believe, at this point has one more missing piece to complete before it's fully completed. So it's exciting to see it finally be fully realized. And honestly, it's an inspiration to this project for the JTT and other trail projects we're working on currently. So David actually helped us put together the application for this project and has been supporting us through the development of the study. So thank you, David, for your work on the LHT and your assistance with the JTT. And I'd like to also take a moment to thank the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, who is providing the grant funding for this project. The county applied for a Transportation and Community Development Initiative grant from the DVRPC and was successfully chosen out of a pool of candidates. So thank you to Spencer Gober and the rest of DVRPC for this grant opportunity, which will allow Mercer County to improve our multimodal assets. And last but not least, we also have our consultant for the project, WSP, and their sub-consultant, Stokes Creative Group. With us tonight from WSP, we have our project manager, Mr. Andrew Lavecchia, as well as Charlie Romanoff and Stephanie Look. And from Stokes, we have Anthony Sticco and Kieran Stratton, as well as Mr. Peter Kramer from Michael Baker International. So before turning it over to WSP, I'd like to thank everyone again for taking the time out of your busy schedules to attend our meeting this afternoon. Now, this project is an incredible opportunity, an opportunity to connect several communities within Mercer County with a safe and reliable transportation and recreational asset, which really does not exist at the time. Essentially, what we're looking to do is to create a safe, long-distance regional connection for cyclists and pedestrians, one that's going to connect several residential neighborhoods, local businesses and employers, educational establishments, parks and open spaces, and more, just as Executive Benson just mentioned. And the intent is really to connect the 4 municipalities, including Princeton, Lawrence, Ewing, and the city of Trenton. But the effect is really to create a much larger regional connection, because with this trail, we will also have the opportunity to connect other trails and transportation assets. So things like the county's proposed Great Western Bikeway, that's going to be a 17-mile long bikeway from Washington Crossing State Park to the DNR Canal Crossing at Baker's Basin. And there's going to be spurs to Ewing Town Center and West Trenton train station, as well as Pennington proper. So we're also going to have a direct connection to the Lawrence Hopewell Trail, as well as the Delaware River Heritage Trail. And there's a significant number of schools, parks, open spaces that this would connect as well. And that's really just the beginning. As we build out the regional trail network, this trail will act to connect, it will act as a critical north to south connection spine from which other trails and even sidewalks or side paths can connect into. And as somebody who never really had access to trails or parks without getting into a car, this is a massive opportunity for our residents and for the future of our community. So with that, I'd like to wrap up and turn this over to Mr. Andrew Lavecchia and WSP for the presentation. And as Anthony mentioned before, we're going to be taking questions at the end. And if there's questions or comments, you can always pop them into the chat, or you can wait till the end of the presentation to raise your hand and we'll go over everything.
Great. Thank you, Matt. Charlie, you want to advance the slide? So good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for your time tonight. This is the second Public Information Center for Concept Development study that is related to the extension of Johnson Trolley Trail Corridor, touching on in the municipalities of Princeton, Ewing, Lawrence, and the city of Trenton. We had the first Public Information Center held in June of 2024 on June 12th. That was followed by an open public input period that spanned about 40 days. Just to review, concept development is a process that the New Jersey Department of Transportation requires a project to go through to receive future funding. Concept development it's planning. It's an investigation, and it looks at the feasibility of a particular project by looking at several different alternatives, weighing the options, and then identifying a publicly preferred alternative and concept. So our study area, Charlie, can you go back just 2 slides, I think? Right there. Good. Thank you. Sorry about that. So the study area focuses on 2 portions of the trail. There's a portion that is north of 295 and a portion south of 295. The 2 green lines are the existing portions of the trail that already are north of 295 and south of 295. So there's a section of the trail that is north of 295 in Lawrence Township that goes and parallels 206, and then south of 295 through Rider University into Ewing on its way to Trenton. Okay. I think we could flip back to the agenda. So this is just a brief agenda of what we're going to go through. We'll look at the goals of the project. We'll look at the schedule, and then we'll talk about the results of the public engagement survey, and then we'll introduce the routes that we are considering for the locally preferred alternative. Go ahead, Charlie. Yeah. All right. So just a quick project recap. Yeah. Thank you. So the trail and its existing portions are part of something called the Circuit Trails Coalition network of trails throughout the greater Philadelphia region. The Johnson Charlie Trail connects to the Lawrence Hopewell Trail. The trail is anticipated to run from the Battle Monument in the city of Trenton to the Battle Monument in the city of Princeton or Princeton. So touching in between Ewing and Lawrence. The trail is expected to run along or close as possible to the historic fast line alignment of the Johnson Trolley Trail. The fast line alignment carried passengers from the early 1900s, from 1902 to 1940, and then after 1940, it just carried freight until about 1973. I think you can go to the next slide. Yeah. So there were several goals of the project. The first goal is to provide an opportunity for disadvantaged communities to make connections. Right? Can people who are one car households, no car households, individuals that are have limited income or so forth, or just are transportation not transportation independent. Can we help them make connections to places like universities or downtown for shopping or dining and so forth, right? The second goal was to create a safe trail experience for all users, and right now those portions that exist of the trail are safe, and it's how do we build the trail out and continue that safety along the trail. And then the last goal is to connect people to larger areas for recreation and open space, transportation facilities, whether that's bus stops or future rail stops and so forth, but provide people with greater opportunity to connect to education, retail, dining, shopping, etc. Okay, so our schedule is that we started this project in the summer or the spring and summer of 2024. We held a local officials briefing in June of 2024, followed by a public information center, and then the timing between public information centers is purposeful, right? It gives us time to hear public feedback from the first public information center, analyze that public feedback, and then develop the alternatives for that we're going to present tonight. And so as we were developing the alternatives earlier in February, we met with local officials. We gave them the same presentation that we're giving you tonight, and now we are focused on the public information center tonight to provide those alternatives. And then after the public information center, we'll have another open public comment period where we'll hear from the public about the alternatives that we're presenting. And these are the two trails or the two existing trail segments that I mentioned earlier. And you can see our study area to the north of 295 is dotted in red, and then south dotted in red as well. The northern section focuses more in Lawrence Township and Hopewell, and then the southern section focuses on that connection to Ewing Township and Trent. Okay, so the history of the trail, and I talked a little bit about this earlier, is that the trail is trying to run along, or we're trying to align the trail with the historic line or the fast line or the Johnson Trolley. So there have been several previous studies looking at certain portions of the trail and focused primarily on I-295. So back in 2014, there was a study that looked at different alignments that could get the trail over 295. In 2021, Mercer County performed another study to basically develop a preferred alternative of how to cross I-295. Part of what Mercer County has been doing since then has been working with NJDOT and is actively engaged in the discussion on how to advance the crossing over 295 to make that connection from the south to the north for the Johnson Trolley Trail. Good, you could advance to the next slide. And then this slide here is a result of the 2014 study. And what it shows is just different alignments in which the trail will get from the south to the north or cross over 295. Obviously, there's a lot of engineering involved in building a bridge or a pedestrian bridge over 295. 295 has a very big right of way at that point. I think it's over 200 feet. And so you're building a large bridge. You need to build the bridge that is accessible for all modes of travel. And so bridges with either U-shaped ramps or switchbacks will help to make the bridge accessible to all populations. All right. This is just the advertisement that we had for the first public engagement opportunity. And you'll see later in this meeting that we also have a survey that'll follow up for public feedback as well. So the first public meeting had over 78 members attending. Comments range from incorporating the history of the trail and the history of the area between Trenton and Princeton into the trail, designated by different trail markers and or wayfinding along the trail. We talked about the potential routing. We talked about increasing our ability to reach out to the Spanish community, the Spanish-speaking community, and then what is the community development potential that will also explore later on when we have a defined plan for the trail. And then a lot of people made the reference that they preferred an off-road trail versus an on-road trail. So we advertised a public survey for just over 40 days. We got 245 responses, which is a really big response from the public, and so we're really happy with those responses. You could see the responses distributed through several towns through Mercer County, Lawrence being the highest responding or municipality with the highest response. Some of the responses talked about having a desired destination that included Princeton, Lawrenceville Business District, Rider University, and downtown Trenton and Mercer Meadows. So some of the positives that came out of the trail were that people were very interested in supporting the trail. There was a desire for access to businesses and recreation, and then people preferred a dedicated off-road facility. Some of the cons were that people were very interested, obviously, in the I-295 bridge. People were concerned about keeping the scenic nature of the trail and the fast line alignment, and then concerns about how the trail would impact residential areas. All right. So the routing alternatives. Charlie, I believe I'm going to turn this over to you. And I was just a little distracted because we got a timely question in the chat, and I believe, Charlie, you're going to start to kind of answer that question as you bring on new slides.
Yeah, I can't see the question, but we can always.
So the question was, what is meant by an off-road trail, and we're going to cover that.
Oh, perfect. Yes, we're getting to that right now.
Yep. Thanks.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, before we get into the actual alternatives, we'll start by talking about the type of shared use facilities that are being considered. What would they actually look like on the ground? All the treatment types that we're talking about are intended to accommodate both cyclists and pedestrians, either on a shared use facility, such as a sidewalk, or on a single use facility like a bike lane. So the first facility type is a multi-use trail, often just called a trail. This operates off-road, usually through green or open space. Preferred width varies based on the demand and kind of environmental constraints, but they're typically 10 to 12 feet wide with 8 feet as a minimum. Next is a side path, which is a multi-use facility that is adjacent to the roadway. Side paths are raised at sidewalk level with preferred minimum width of 10 feet, and side paths accommodate both cyclists and pedestrians. And so these first two facility types, multi-use trail and side path, are the two shared use options where pedestrians and cyclists share the same space. Next is a cycle track, which consists of two dedicated bike lanes that are next to each other, operating in either direction, with vertical separation from motor vehicle traffic. So vertical separation is any kind of, it could be a raised curb, it could be flexible delineators, but it's something that's more than just paint. It's something that vertically separates the travel lanes and motor vehicles from cyclists. And in any sections where a cycle track is suggested or recommended, pedestrians will be served by a sidewalk. Next is a buffered bike lane, which has what we call horizontal separation from motor vehicle traffic. So a painted buffer that is a minimum 1.5 feet, usually up to 3 feet, but there's no vertical separation between motor vehicle traffic and cyclists with a buffered bike lane. And then the preferred width of a buffered bike lane is 5 to 6 feet, with a minimum in certain circumstances of 4 feet. And with a buffered bike lane, pedestrians would be served by a sidewalk. Next is a bicycle lane, also known as a standard bike lane, kind of just that standard painted arrow on the road, but in a dedicated space. Bicycle lanes have a preferred width of 5 to 6 feet and a minimum of 4 feet. They have dedicated space, but there's no horizontal or vertical separation from motor vehicle traffic. There's just that, the white line that separates them. And there would also be anywhere a bike lane is recommended, there'll also be a sidewalk. And then the final facility type we'll be talking about is shared lane markings, which are intended for low volume, low speed roadways. They're also called sharrows. They are suggested in places where a dedicated bike facility isn't particularly feasible, usually based because of the width of the roadway, the variable width. And shared lane markings consist of paint on the road, noting the presence of cyclists, and often has signage indicating the same, but they would kind of share the lane with motor vehicle traffic. So during the first public meeting last year, we presented various routes to consider, is what we were calling them at the time. We've taken these routes and pared them down to 3 alternatives in the north, so in Lawrence and Princeton, and then 3 different alternatives in the south in Ewing and Trenton. And we use several criteria to determine these routes, and these criteria will also help inform selecting a preliminary preferred alternative, which is the next step of this process. So the criteria include access to community resources, including employment, recreation, schools, shopping, utilizing existing facilities. We want to use existing facilities for the trail where it makes sense to do so. Connecting to regional multi-use facilities. We want to build connections with regional trails such as the Lawrence Hopewell Trail and the DNR Canal Trail. Minimizing trip length. The trail will be used for recreation and commuting. So while having the shortest trip isn't the primary factor that's going to lead to a preliminary preferred alternative, it's something to consider. And then we also want to minimize the need for property acquisitions and easements. We want to take advantage of recommendations from previous plans and build on the work that's already been done. As part of this process, we reviewed municipal circulation and bike plans for all 4 municipalities, Trenton, Ewing, Lawrence, and Princeton, as well as Greater Mercer TMA's Greater Mercer Trails Plan and Mercer County's bike plan. As mentioned earlier in the public survey, we heard that people prefer off-road facilities and want vertical and horizontal separation. So this is another criteria to promote these things where feasible. We want to avoid environmental impacts, including to wetlands, of which there are many in the northern part of our study area. We want to minimize construction cost. And then the last criteria is what we're calling constructability, which is basically a combination of all these other factors. How buildable would the alternative really be, considering all of any challenges that may be present? So now we'll get into the actual alternatives themselves and There'll be plenty of time at the end to answer any questions, and we can scroll back to any of these slides. But I'll just go through each of them to give you a sense of what they are. So I'll start in the north. Just for context, this existing trailhead is in Lawrenceville, and this goes up to Princeton and Princeton University. So all three of the northern alternatives connect these 2 points, the existing trailhead and the Princeton Battle Monument in downtown Princeton. And on all the maps we're about to show, they differentiate between existing facilities as a solid line and non-existing facilities as a dashed line. And additionally, off-road facilities are shown red and on-road facilities are shown orange. And as a reminder, off-road facilities are multi-use trails and side paths, and on-road facilities are anything else, anything that's on the road between the 2 curbs of the roadway. So alternative 1, also referred to as Mercer Meadows to Princeton Battle Monument, would travel north from the existing trailhead onto existing facilities in Mercer Meadows and east off-road along Van Kirk Road. Van Kirk Road is narrow, so constructing an off-road facility may require property acquisition or easements. From Van Kirk Road, the trail would travel north through several properties and Shippetoken Woods, cross Carter Road to Carson Road Woods, it would connect to Rosedale Road, extending east to the existing side path here in solid red, and then to Elm Road and 206. This route would be 91% off-road and connect to several recreational facilities, including Mercer Meadows and Carson Road Woods. A consideration for this alternative is the limited right-of-way available on Van Kirk Road that may necessitate easements or utility relocation, as well as off-road portions that would require negotiating and coordinating with property owners. Now on to alternative 2, and just for context, we kept alternative 1 on here. It's grayed out, so kind of building on each of them so you can see the differences between each of the alternatives. So alternative 2 is we're calling the historic trolley route to Princeton Battle Monument. This route matches most closely the historic trolley route. Still begin at the existing trailhead in Lawrenceville, travel north along Craven Lane past Lawrenceville Elementary School, and continue east on road along Bergen Street and off road along the historic trolley line through several properties to Carson Road Woods. From here, it would continue north to Rosedale Road and take the same route as alternative 1 to the existing side path on Rosedale to Elm and 206. This route would be 76% off-road. And some considerations for this alternative are that it would cross several private properties along the historic trolley line. Additionally, Bergen Street has limited width for buffer bike facility. Not the busiest road, but would be not much room for any kind of vertical or horizontal separation for bike facility. So the final alternative in the north is alternative 3, which we're calling Lawrenceville School to Princeton Battle Monument. And this would travel east from the existing trailhead through the Lawrenceville School, cross Princeton Pike into an office complex, travel north off-road along existing and planned facilities, cross Princeton Pike again onto residential roads, and travel the rest of the way on existing facilities along Province Line Road into Carson Road Woods, and once again onto Rosedale Road. This alternative is 87% off-road, that would operate with some mixed traffic on the Lawrenceville School campus, where some motor vehicles are allowed to operate locally on the campus. Some considerations for this alternative are that it would, as I said, pass through the Lawrenceville School campus, which is privately owned. Additionally, there's less access to green space with this alternative, and it is the longest of the 3 alternatives. So now we'll come back later to summarize the northern ones, but we'll move now to the south between Ewing, this existing trailhead in Ewing near Spruce Street, and all 3 of these southern alternatives would connect this existing trailhead with the Trenton Battle Monument. So this area is more built out than the northern area, and thus has fewer options for off-road facilities, but there are still some opportunities for shorter off-road segments or for vertical and horizontal separation between bike facilities and motor vehicle traffic. So alternative 1 has 2 options. The first option would travel on road west along Spruce Street to Prospect Street, and the other option would travel south on 5th Street and west on planned facilities for Olin Avenue. From here, both options would utilize the existing buffered bike lane on Prospect Street and continue south on Pennington Avenue. Either of these options would be mostly, nearly all on road, 92% on road. Both options connect to Monument Intermediate School and employment and retail areas along Olin Avenue and Pennington Avenue. And the direct option would also connect to Moody Park. A consideration of this alternative is that it is nearly all on road. So there's limited protection for trail users, as in mixed traffic. And being on road, it lacks a natural trail-like feel or setting. And then the 5th Street option also would need to accommodate both trail users and local traffic in the same space. So alternative 2, we're referring to as Stokes Avenue to Trenton Battle Monument. This would travel down 5th Street and continue off-road to Stokes Avenue. This is kind of, just for context, the Home Depot is right at the intersection of Olin and Arctic, so this is kind of paralleling the Home Depot property. So to continue off-road to Stokes Avenue and plan facilities for Southard Street, where it would reach the Trenton Battle Monument via the existing DNR Canal Trail spur, which is this red solid line. This alternative is 52% off-road and would connect to MLK Park and MLK Middle School. Some considerations for this alternative are that the off-road portion, this orange, the red dash is the off-road portion. The off-road portion would require negotiation with private landowners. And there's also some very narrow right-of-way and steep slopes in this area. The facility would also run adjacent to a waste transfer station in this area and a scrapyard, which would require some safety, security, and comfort considerations for trail users. Additionally, as with alternative 1, the 5th Street option for alternative 1, 5th Street would need to accommodate trail users and local traffic if using this route. So now the final southern alternative is alternative 3, referred to as Capital City Sports Complex to Trenton Battle Monument. This would travel east on Spruce Street, south on Arctic Parkway, and east on planned facilities for Olin Avenue to an off-road connection to Capital City Sports Complex, which is this green spot here. And then from Capital City Sports Complex, it would jump back on road on Calhoun Street and planned facilities for Southard Street, reaching the Trenton Battle Monument via the existing DNR Canal Trail spur. This route would be 38% off-road and connect to Capital City Sports Complex, MLK Park, and MLK Middle School. This alternatives, some considerations for this are the off-road portion would require negotiation with private landowners, and there are also some environmental and historic sensitivities on that off-road portion. Another challenge is that Calhoun Street is a fairly busy and narrow road that lacks the width for a buffered facility. Now we have an alternatives matrix with a lot of information. It will briefly summarize the characteristics, strengths, and considerations of each alternative. And while we do have distinct alternatives, the preliminary preferred alternative could potentially pick and choose segments from each of these. So starting from the north, all alternatives would connect to various community resources. They're all mostly off-road, with alternative 1 having the highest percentage of off-road facility. Alternative 3 is mostly existing facilities, which would mean it would require less construction. Alternative 2 has high environmental impacts and medium need for property acquisition. And alternative 1 has some environmental impacts and little property acquisition. And alternative 3 has very little environmental impacts or property acquisition because it is mostly existing facilities. And thus, because it is mostly existing facilities, it would have the lowest construction cost. Alternative 2 would have medium construction cost, and alternative 1 would have kind of in between low to medium construction cost. And then based on all of these factors, alternative 1 is the most constructible, and alternatives 2 have medium constructability. Now moving to the south, all alternatives would connect to community resources. Alternative 2 utilizes the most off-road facilities, with alternative one providing the least. Although alternative one utilizes the most existing facilities. And being mostly on-road, southern alternatives have fewer environmental impacts and easements, though the off-road portions of alternatives 2 and 3 would require some easements or property acquisitions, and thus are considered to have low or low-medium constructability and a medium cost, while alternative 1 has high constructability and low cost. So we're almost at the point to answer questions and discuss the alternatives. Just 2 more brief slides till then. So after this meeting, the initial next step is to publish the slide deck on the project website so people can take a closer look at all of these alternatives and data. We'll be accepting public comments now through March 30th. After that, we will be selecting a preliminary preferred alternative. And the last step of this study is to complete the concept development report this summer. And we discussed kind of the time frame earlier in the context that this is a concept development plan, but this is the earliest formal part of the project's development, and various segments of the trail could potentially be advanced at different times on their own timelines. So we're about to take questions and comments. Before that, I just wanted to share this QR code and link to the feedback form that will be available now through March 30th for people who provide feedback on which alternatives they prefer and any other questions or concerns they have about the study. There is a link, once you get to this feedback form, there'll be a link to a map, basically a Google map that has the alternatives on it, so you can zoom in and out and see in closer detail where exactly they would be going.
And Charlie, let me just jump in right here.
Sure.
That QR code and link will be posted to the Mercer County website. And so if you're trying to look for it right now, no worries, you can get to it at any time after the presentation as well.
Yes.
We plan on posting the QR codes and the feedback form soon. And in addition to the feedback form and updated slide deck, we are going to post this recorded presentation. So people who couldn't watch it at home tonight, they'll be able to watch it at any point following the meeting.
Yep. Okay, so now we are happy to answer any questions or have any discussion and look back at the alternatives.
So I was going to say the first question in the chat is from John Murray. It says it would be helpful to show the length of each option. For example, how direct the route is from point A to point B.
Yeah, so Charlie, we have the lengths. We just didn't publish them on the maps. So
yeah, and that is a consideration and a criteria for how we'll narrow them down. Right. Kind of, as we said, length isn't going to be a main factor, but it is something to consider. You don't want a longer route for no reason. It has to have other benefits to it.
Yeah, but what I think we could do is we can update some of the maps with some of the the entire length of the option, just so, or the alternative, so people get an idea of that. We'll do that with the slide deck presented or posted onto the website.
Okay. Yeah, it should be a quick GIS function, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anthony, if you want to, keep facilitating the questions, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. The next question is from Andrew H. Did I hear correctly that there are planned bike lanes for Olden Avenue? Is there any insight on what kind of bike lanes would be built?
I can take that one. So Olden Avenue, we currently have a local concept development study that we've completed. The project is completing preliminary engineering. We're going to be entering final engineering in the coming months, probably towards the end of the year. With that project, we're going to be looking at Olden Avenue from Pennington Avenue to New York Avenue. That's going to be a comprehensive, basically redesign of Olden Avenue. Safety improvements at the intersections. We're looking at roundabouts. We're looking at bike lanes. They're going to be buffered bike lanes. So a 5-foot bike lane, potentially 6-foot with a 2-foot buffer. And that would stretch all the way from Pennington all the way to Princeton Avenue, where the border of the city of Trenton is the city border. So there would be bike lanes. There would be facilities, complete facilities from stretch to stretch. So if there's a facility proposed to go down Arctic Parkway or Fish Street or Prospect, it would link to the greater Oldham Avenue bike facilities that we're proposing to build.
All right. Next question is from David. The alternatives were all about the north and south sections separately. Are we considering different options for connecting the two sides?
So, no. So what happens is that if you look at the map on the right, Charlie, if you just grab your cursor and show where the existing trailhead is up north, that star is the beginning of the existing trail that goes to right before 295. And so what we're trying to do is connect the Trenton Battle Monument from the south to the existing trail. And then in the north of 295, there's a section of trail that exists from 295, kind of parallels 206 to downtown Lawrenceville. And that black star again is where we're going from connecting that portion of the existing trailhead to the Princeton Battle Monument. And so the hole in the donut or in the middle is the portion between 295 that's already been studied, and the opportunity is there to build a pedestrian bridge. There's just I see a further question about building the pedestrian bridge. This study here is not focused on building the pedestrian bridge. The option to build a pedestrian bridge is already, and the alternative has already been decided that, yeah, it's a good idea. Mercer County, along with NJDOT, are looking at opportunities to further fund that and build out the bridge over 295. So I hope that's helpful.
But that is a separate effort. So we're having ongoing discussions with DOT, but those are preliminary in the preliminary stage. There is a long way to go, but that is a consideration at this point.
All right. Next question is from Nasima Udin. I agree with John Murray. Maybe even maybe in a video to highlight boots on the ground, what the trails are like currently, and the potential of what it could be.
Sure. So we've done some field work and we've taken some pictures, and so the final report will have photos of what it could be and the likeliness of the build out of the trail.
Next is Kelly Cleland. Is the 295 bridge in Lawrence part of this project or something separate? And is there funding identified for the bridge?
Right. And so we just kind of covered that. Specifically, there's not funding identified yet, but that's what Mercer County and NJDOT are working on to identify funding.
All right. Next is Valeria Menendez. Are the public comments that you hope to have by March 30th the QR link, the QR code link, or are there other events for this piece?
No, that's correct. The public comments are through the QR code link. There's an option to provide your thoughts as well as pick different alternatives that you see tonight, and then you could also email myself or Matt directly with public comments.
And we hope to have the QR code and the link up by probably end of the week, Monday at the latest.
Kathy Rickard, what is the plan for connecting north to south, and what are the alternatives for that path?
So we did flash that earlier on the as part of the presentation. Connecting north and south is just a pedestrian bridge that's connecting 295 from the north to the south, and that's really the design for that hasn't really advanced, other than this is the opportunity from a planning stage of what we want to do and how we want to connect from north to south.
Correct.
You looking for that slide, Charlie?
It's a lot of slides back. I know. Yeah, we can show it, but yeah.
And just to bring up, in 2014, there was a study performed about the bridge. So there were alternatives explored about going around different routes. Ultimately, this was the preliminary preferred alternative, going behind Ryder, connecting to the existing trail segments. So that's what is planned at this point, based on that 2014 study.
Charlie, just take a second and go to that slide.
Sure.
There's a couple other questions about 295, and so I want to be attentive to that. No, the
Sorry,
slide with the red drawing on. Yeah. you could find that one. The 295 slide.
Oh.
Yep, there you go. All right. So the alternative of crossing 295 has been identified. Mercer County agrees, NGDOT agrees, hey, we want to cross 295 with this trail. How crossing 295, we know it's going to be a pedestrian bridge. But the type of pedestrian bridge hasn't yet, figured out, or the exact location. But this is the from a conceptual standpoint, this is what you would see. You would see a bridge with either U-shaped ramps or switchback ramps to get to the height and then over 295 to cross from the south to the north.
Okay, next question from iPadded. Isn't the current construction project happening at 295 and Princeton Pike having bike lanes? And is this being considered as an alternative way to cross 295?
We did not consider that as an alternative route to crossing 295.
Okay. Alan Hershey. In places where there is not room for horizontal separation and path is immediately adjacent to roadway, is it possible to create some form of vertical division, for example, flexible knockdown posts?
Yeah, we did show some of that, and so right now, the segments that you see, once we figure out what the locally preferred alternative is, then we go back and do an engineering process and look at the opportunities for us to include some of those different typical sections that Charlie had shown earlier, where there were flexible delineators or some type of protected bike lane, whether it was vertical separation or horizontal separation. So they are being considered.
The caveat is they do have increased maintenance responsibilities. So the county hasn't been installing flexible delineators for bike lanes. It's something we've considered. It's something we're probably gonna have to take on a case-by-case basis. But it is something we could consider potentially.
All right, next up, Valeria Menendez. You mentioned that residents were concerned about impacts to residential areas. What about what exact impacts are those respondents concerned?
So I think typically when you have trail prospects going through a residential area, people wonder how close it's going to be to their yard. Is it going to impact their property and so forth? So they were more about property impacts and how they could interact with the trail versus anything else that we heard. So just I think people are generally concerned. Hey, I live on this road, or my property backs up to this road. Am I going to be impacted?
Hi, sorry, just jumping in real quick. So impacted as in like some of their land will be taken away or kind of property value type of thing. I know often there's a discussion as well as of that.
So the property value, I think, weighs in and out, and that we didn't hear people that were concerned about property value as much as they were concerned about how the trail would interact with their property, particularly easements and or if there was some type of taking. Right now, we don't particularly see any any need for actual takings. We would ask a lot of people for I shouldn't say a lot of people. We would ask people who are impacted, but for easements, to use their property.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and at no point I believe there's a taking. I think
Right.
if we're looking at anything, it's easements along the frontage of properties, and it's very limited depending on which alternative we're looking at. Alternative two may have a larger impact just because of the nature of development. It's kind of away from public roadways. It's once you get past Bergen, there's an HOA, there's a wooded area, but then you get into private properties. So that one would have a more of an impact. The alternative one, we're talking about minimal impacts.
Okay, next question is from Jesse Kramer. Where Ewing meets Lawrenceville near Stouts isn't a section of the trolley trail privately owned. What plans exist to bring that property into the public domain, and what happens if there is resistance from the property owner?
Matt, I'm not 100% familiar with this location.
I believe this is the section from where Spruce goes all the way to Whitehead Road Extension. There
Gotcha.
isn't a single property owner that owns a majority of that site. We are exploring discussions with that property owner to see, how willing they'd be uh, selling the property or working out a deal. So it's something we're considering, but it is a single property owner, and we'll have to reach out to them and start those discussions.
And there's a roadway there that that can function as a trail to get to that section of the trail that exists.
Correct. And honestly, that section already it's maintained, it's mowed. I'm not sure who's mowing it, but people are using it at this point, all the way down to the bus company on 5th Street.
Hey, Anthony, before we go to the next written question, I'm really glad that people are writing their questions and so forth. But we would be happy to hear people ask their questions too. And so if anybody wants to raise their hand and say, hey, here's my question, we'd be happy to do that as well, just as an aside.
Okay. Yeah, and we can certainly get there. I just I do want to run through
let's get
the written questions that people have posted in the chat, and then we'll get to the hand raises.
It's very orderly of everyone. It's nice.
Yeah, it is. It certainly makes my job easier. Ann Ulestad, it appears that North Alts 1 and 2 run along the LHT on Craven Lane. The LHT on Craven Lane currently only consists of an approximately 4-foot wide sidewalk. Would there be any improvements to make this stretch more in line with the typical cross sections presented earlier in the presentation?
And I think that's the section after Carter Road. Is that correct, Matt?
No, that's kind of right at the start of the trail.
Oh, right here. Sure. So again, that would, once we establish whether or not that is the preferred alternative, we would then be able to look at the road and the cartway and find out if there's an opportunity for us to, develop a facility that is different. But right now, I think that's a 25-mile-per-hour road, and we have the opportunity to share the road with bicycles as well as use the existing sidewalk.
Yeah, that might be a place where street lane markings are the preferred facility type.
Thank you. Next question is Jack Hunt. Hang on. Will the off-road sections be paved? For example, no trails in Carson Road Woods are currently paved.
Yeah, so the idea there is that you could have a variety of trail types. There are some trails, I think, in Mercer Meadows that are paved. There's other trails along Rosedale Road that is an asphalt path, so forth. And so we would look at that again from an engineering lens, and from a neighborhood design, community design element, and use the existing kind of context sensitivity that's available in that area. So,
and just to add to that, essentially, this is the first phase of the project. Once we identify a route, first of all, there's no reason all of these routes can't become trails. We're going to find a preliminary preferred route that's going to become the spine for the Johnson Trolley Trail. Any of these routes can become trails on their own right. The township and nonprofits can go after these sections and make these actual trails. But ultimately, when we get to design and the design phase, that's when we're going to identify what's the appropriate pavement type. We're going to talk to DEP, we're going to talk to municipal officials, residents, and kind of determine if it's going to be a stone dust, asphalt, like Andrew mentioned, it could be boardwalk, even if it's a wet area. So a lot of those decisions are going to be identified in future phases.
All right, thank you very much. Next question, Mary K. Cuser. Will there be any changes to the trail between Denau Road and Gordon Avenue?
I am looking that up. Charlie, are you familiar with Denau Road?
Yeah, it's just basically, I think the person referring to this northern existing segment.
Yeah, the down Gordon, I don't believe we looked at because that's going to remain most likely the same.
So it's part of,
Unless the bridge is actually unless this becomes part of the bridge project.
It's the existing trail
oh,
north of
okay.
highway.
Yeah. Oh, I recognize that voice. Thank you. No, we don't have plans to change that portion of the trail yet, or not as part of this project.
Okay, next question, Alan Hershey. Is the battleground site in Princeton as the northern terminus sacred? Have other ways to enter Princeton been considered, even if they might end somewhere else?
So part of what we did is look at the existing trail network that is in Princeton, and used it to kind of as a guide for how we would end the trail. The battle monument in Princeton by no means is just a marker for the route, but there's no reason why we couldn't extend that further down Nassau Street, or so forth. We did look at other options along Elm Road, and the feedback that we got from the public survey initially and so forth was that really people wanted to get to downtown Princeton, in that area of Princeton.
One of the alternatives took us, I believe, to Community Park North, closer to 206. That is a bit of ways from the downtown area, and then getting from that part of Princeton to the downtown is challenging. Witherspoon Street and side streets are a challenge. So going down 206, there's already an existing side path on 206 that could be potentially widened. We'd have to work with DOT and with the municipality. Elm Road is going to be a challenge no matter what. It's a narrowed road. There's a 3-foot sidewalk currently, so we'd have to work with the municipality. We may have to cut that section short and actually go down some of the side streets. But ultimately, for this preliminary preferred alternative, these routes would go down Elm and 206 to get to, I guess, the greatest density, the densest part of Princeton with the university and with the businesses.
Next question, Jeffrey Laurenti. How many private property owners would have to be coaxed to cooperate in alternatives to both north and south? Are they anticipated to be a particularly difficult bunch? In both cases, number 2 seems to promise the most direct route.
Yeah, so alternative number 2 is the most direct route. It's probably the hardest route to construct too, especially in that area where the red squares are. Environmentally, there's a number of sensitive areas. There's steep slopes. There's property owners that back right up to the old alignment of the fast lane. There's a gully there that has water in it and so forth. And so there's a number of issues that I would be concerned more about than property owners, because getting permits to develop a trail in that area, I think is really hard versus the property owners. And quite frankly, it's not even an attractive area to walk. It's not a natural area. You have the recycling center and industry on both sides. So, I mean, if everybody does, the public tells us they like alternative 2, we would go down that route and investigate it. But I don't feel like it's the most desirable location for the trail.
Equally true on the south section?
I'm sorry?
Mostly
I
the south
think
side.
Andrew was referring to the south section in terms of the environmental permitting and constraint issues, as well as the property ownership.
Yeah, on the south side, you do have the waste transfer station. You do have heavy industrial uses. There's 2 paving companies, a recycling company. There's the waste management facility. So between those facilities, security, contamination, Andrew mentioned environmental contamination, steep slopes. It's wet back there as well. It is going to be challenging. And then Hyundai actually is looking to probably redevelop their facility on Olden Avenue. And Hyundai owns that section where JTT used to sit across Olden to go to Fifth. So if Hyundai redevelops, that's most likely going to become part of their parking lot. Caliber Collision is right there next to the bridge. So it would be difficult to kind of work around that alignment to get to Stokes. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge we have in Trenton and Ewing and Hamilton. We're working with 18th and 19th century grids and property ownership dating back, years and years. To the north, it's not as easy as well. I mean, to the north, you do have those environmental considerations, and you do have driveways, fences, houses sometimes that run up along the old alignment. So that's going to be difficult as well.
Okay. Next question is from Sylvia. Any indications about the views of property owners in that long segment from Bergen towards Carson Woods? Is some of that Terhune?
The portion along Van Kirk Road is Terhune, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Yeah, this one's Terhune.
Right. No, we haven't had any indications from property owners, but really this is the format and this is the process for getting those impacts. And so if you live along that alignment, or you have concerns about that alignment, this is the point for you to speak up and tell us about that. Whether it's here or in the survey that'll be posted on the website.
All right. Next up is John Cavello, who also has his hand raised. So we'll go with the written question first. The pedestrian bridge to connect the trail over I-295 design should be designed to have the switchback ascending and descending ramps on the southbound side of 295 to be eastwardly oriented, to also incorporate a sound barrier that has long been approved but never funded for the existing homes along West Long Drive that preceded the building of the highway. This project should accomplish two policy goals: connect the trail over 295 and create the sound barriers promised to the West Long Drive community over 55 years ago when the highway was constructed. This will eliminate the bad planning in the 1960s to not have 295 below grade from Rider University to near Princeton Pike.
Yep. And I think that is being considered as part of that project, John. So thank you for that comment.
And it is shocking that those barriers weren't constructed. From what I've heard, their DOT is actually mailing notices to those property owners along the back section of that entire neighborhood. So it does look like some work is being advanced by DOT. So it is likely that those barriers will go up at some point.
And there definitely is funding pots out there to finally make that happen.
That's what we've heard. So hopefully it goes through.
Did you have a different question, John, or another comment?
I just another thing. I mean, I want to applaud everybody on this. I mean, I used to work for Edison, and we did one over Route 1 for the East Coast Greenways Trail. So I know this is a big project. For the existing trail, the only thing to point out, because I live in Lawrenceville, is where the depot historic building is along James Street. There's a major planning need there for where the trail doesn't continue to Gordon. And James Street itself is very, very narrow and very difficult for people to navigate, but there is a wide right-of-way of the trail on the northbound side of James Street, southbound side of James Street. So I don't know what you were looking at in terms of any safety improvements along this, but that's a busy area that connects a lot of people to Main Street. That you'd have to obviously plan it also with Lawrence Township, but there's some really serious safety issues there for pedestrians as well as for for people driving cars and for bicyclists. I mean, there's no dedicated bikes there. And the only other last comment, and then I'll give up my time, is the part through Main Street of the existing trail is really just a trail. There's no grade improvements to it for safety on people on bikes. It's great to walk on, but it's really kind of dangerous if you're riding your bike.
It's a stone dust trail, right?
Correct. Correct.
Interesting.
Correct.
Yep.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. Go to Kathy.
Yeah, Kathy Rickard. Maybe consider saving money and using the existing 206 bridge, to which there's a comment that 206 does not provide safe pedestrian crossing.
Yeah, I think that was looked at too as part of the alternatives analysis that was done in 2014. And traffic conditions aren't usually like wine. They don't get better over time unless you make a major improvement. There hasn't been a major improvement to 206, and so it's probably still not a viable option to use that section of 206.
Okay. Jeffrey had another comment. Alternatives 2 and 3 towards the Trenton Battle Monument both appear to run down Southard Street, a pretty dense residential street. Was consideration given to using Princeton Avenue / MLK Boulevard from Southard to the monument?
So the reason that
ahead.
we're looking at Southern Street was because the city of Trenton has plans to make some improvements along Southern Street, and so that's the reason why we're looking at that. And those improvements included a cycle track and or bicycle lanes on Southern. Go ahead, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that the city is looking at a project for Sutter Street, so Sutter Street may be improved in advance of this trail effort. I mean, unless.
But is this Southern Street from MLK Boulevard / Princeton Avenue to Calhoun and to that connection near Stokes Avenue? Or is it down, this is where you have the dense residential construction from MLK Boulevard, Princeton Avenue toward Brunswick, and then that connection that leads onto the DNR Canal Trail? Because what kinds of improvements do they envision on that long block from Princeton Ave to Brunswick Ave?
That project is still in concept development. The section that the city is looking at goes from Calhoun Street to the high school. Or actually, not the high school, I'm sorry. It goes to MLK Boulevard. So our proposed alignment would go beyond that, past the high school to connect to the canal.
Well, middle school. All right.
Past the middle school.
But so had you looked at going down MLK Boulevard or Princeton Avenue that takes you down right to the Battle Monument rather than circling around and looking up to it?
The challenge with MLK Boulevard is it's very dense. It's very, very densely populated. Parking is heavily utilized. Taking any parking from MLK Boulevard would be a challenge. Now that Sutter isn't going to be a challenge as well, but that part of Trenton is heavily populated. So any improvement we make is going to be a challenge. We have considered taking the trail down Prospect Street instead of jumping on 31, continuing to go down Prospect to the canal, and then using the canal to get to the Battle Monument. That would be potentially less intrusive. But again, anytime you get into the city, parking is going to be an issue. Limited right away is going to be an issue. Utilities are definitely going to be an issue. But MLK Boulevard is not more likely. It's definitely a little more dense than other parts of the city.
All right. Another comment from Kathy. Please use an existing bridge over 295 for the trail. Do not disrupt the wetlands between Long Acres and the Ryder Fields.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that's all those environmental considerations will be taken into and looked at when and if the bridge over 295 is constructed. So.
All right, next is from Leslie Floyd. As someone whose property adjoins the trolley line north of the highway, the trolley line is a good neighbor, a wonderful community amenity, and incidentally a benefit to our property value.
Thank you.
Thank you for the feedback, Leslie.
And on that point, I think when we did some field work on Johnson Trolley Trail, existing trail, we did see several homes along this existing portion that had makeshift paths from their backyard to the trail that they, either the current homeowner or a prior homeowner had constructed in order to take advantage of that asset.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you. Valeria with another question. How do you plan to disseminate the survey? I hear that it will be posted on the county website, but will there be any other way that people will be directed to the site?
Matt, can we use some social media and so forth to get that
Abs-
get it out there? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to reach out to our communications office. They can put a social blast out. We're going to reach out to our municipal
Yeah.
partners. They can do a social blast.
And honestly, we'll work on putting the link in the chat right now, just so people can actually copy and paste it if they want to. So, Charlie, if you can get that link to Anthony, and Anthony can post it in the chat, or you could post it in the chat.
Yeah, I'm sharing my screen, but if Stephanie who's on the call, can do that.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
And that's
Thank you.
actually a good lead into the next question with the maps.
Yep. Alan Hershey, will maps with a bit more detail, for example, road markings, be available in addition to the slide deck so we can consider the alternatives more thoughtfully?
Yes. So when you go to the survey, we have an interactive map in which you can click another link and you can zoom in. It'll be a Google style map where you can zoom in and see some more detail to each individual route.
Yeah, and you'll be able to turn on and off each alternative, so you can see them all at once or see them one at a time, however you prefer.
Charlie, I don't want to throw you off from the presentation. Are you able to click the link and show us real quick? Would that be?
No, I think we do it.
Yeah, can I click there? Maybe I can. I might have to re-share. Are you still seeing my PDF?
Yeah,
Yes.
we see. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you might want to just escape out of the PDF.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
While you're doing that, Charlie,
Mhm.
do we have another question?
You have Lisa.
Yes, I was going to say Lisa from the
Hand up.
city of Trenton has been very patiently waiting.
Thanks, Lisa. Hi.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I see so many familiar faces and names on this screen, and I'm so glad to be following the progress of this project. I want to thank Mercer County. I want to thank DVRPC for funding it. I want to thank WSP for advancing it. And I come to you speaking both as a private citizen as well as a municipal employee. And in my private role as a resident of Princeton, I wanted to draw your attention to the fact that there is a new bike lane that is on Hodge Road, such that if you were to continue on Rosedale, you would not need to jet out to the Battle Monument. You could get downtown to Hullfish, to the Paul Robeson Art Center, and the back of the Palmer Square without getting onto 06. And it would be much more direct to the downtown businesses than, while I acknowledge the poetic connection between the Battle Monument of Trenton to the Battle Monument of Princeton. But I think as a cyclist, people would be more comfortable to continue down Hodge. And it's a lighter volume of traffic than 206. So that would be one suggestion to make on the north side of the route. My second suggestion is to do with my municipal role, and that is on the south end. The first thing I want to point out is that Southard is a truck route, and the truck route is actively used by large trucks hauling waste to the waste transfer station. I see it every day, and I know that between MLK and Brunswick Avenue, there are also on-street parking. So to route a bike route through there for anyone but the most experienced cyclist would be challenging, to be honest. And my recommendation would be to look at Prospect a little more closely, because Prospect is wider and could accommodate a separated bike lane because while it is a county road, it doesn't seem to have the same volume of truck traffic that I have observed on Southern. The second thing that I point out is that the mention of what is happening on MLK Boulevard could eventually feed into this project. It's part of a longer, how do I put it, HUD project for the choice neighborhoods. And we are working on streetscapes, we're working on bus stops, we're working on bicycle facilities, and we're working on things like bump outs on MLK to slow the traffic, which could again make it more convenient for the less than experienced cyclist. The final thing I want to point out is this transition from north to south, which goes from a relatively unpopulated area to a densely populated one, where it's off-road for the most part and suddenly on-road. And I would strongly recommend, from a safety perspective, some kind of advice or notification to trail users that the conditions of any future on-road pieces of the trail could become a lot more challenging than what they have already experienced thus far coming from the north. That's it.
Lisa, those are excellent recommendations. And honestly, that's exactly what we're looking for. We're looking for that type of, feedback. The Princeton section, that's something we can definitely explore. If, there's a less impactful alternative, something definitely worth looking into. And down south, we've talked in the past about Prospect. We've talked about Suttard. Suttard, I believe the main reason we chose Suttard was because the city was planning a project on Suttard. So I guess this would kind of coincide with that project. And again, depending where that project goes, Suttard may or may not be a feasible alternative. Trucks are a concern for a majority of the southern segment. I mean, you go down Prospect, you go across Spruce Street, you go to Calhoun Street, there's trucks all over the city. So I think no matter what we do, we're going to have to take that into deep consideration as we're planning those facilities in the future. But thank you for the recommendations.
Thank you. Thank you for all of your work.
And the signage, I think that's something, once you get to the intersection with Spruce, right before you cross the street, maybe there could be signage or something that, in the design stage we can come up with to let people know, be careful. This is going to become on road, off road. Just advanced warning.
Great.
So, yeah, thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Matt. So there is a question about trail maintenance, Matt, and I think we can kind of, both talk about this. So trail, because there's so much ownership that is either county or local roads and so forth, and the maintenance of the trail will be shared amongst those entities. But I don't know, Matt, if you wanted to talk a little bit further about some more additional maintenance.
Yeah, I think for the sections where the county, if we do route it through the county parks, obviously the county would maintain those sections. When we're talking about the new trails, if we use existing township properties, most likely the townships will maintain it. Obviously, it's something we'd have to discuss with the towns. I think a lot of that is going to be up for future discussions, future considerations. As we enter preliminary design, final design, that's going to be discussions we're going to have with local officials. But maintenance is definitely a key concern. We've built a significant amount of trails. They've been around for 10, 20 years. And honestly, you don't need much maintenance for 10, 20 years. You're clearing brush, you're clearing tree limbs, debris, trash. It's the 20-year mark when pavement starts to fail and you need to redo the pavement, or there's washed out stone dust you need to maintain. But a lot of that's going to be up for future consideration.
And
Okay.
before we get to the next question, you can see my screen, right? The map.
Yeah,
Yes.
thanks.
Okay. So yeah, this is for anyone who navigates to the interactive map. This is what it would look like. Turn on and off any of the alternatives that you'd want, in order to focus on one at a time, zoom in and out. We tried to use similar symbology on here as in the presentation, but we cannot do solid and dashed lines here. It just doesn't have the capability for it. But for each segment, it does say whether it's would be on-road or off-road and whether it's existing or non-existing. So it's the same data you'd have in the presentation in a slightly different format.
So Charlie, that's in Google Maps. Can you put that link in the chat?
It is, David.
I think Stephanie added, yeah.
When you take this survey, there's a link that will take you to this map.
Yeah, so this will be the form. Once this is available, this is what it will look like. And you'll have a link below the question. It has to view the alternatives, visit this, and then that will go to the site. And we're also providing images of the alternatives maps that we showed in the presentation. Those will also be available if someone doesn't want to navigate to Google Maps. They can just look at that same static image.
On the website, we will post the maps then. You could zoom in. So in addition to this interactive map, you can use the static maps. And Stephanie did post it in the chat.
Yeah.
So we have two hands, Jeffrey and John.
Yeah, go ahead. Looks like Jeffrey's first.
Okay, could I ask if you could put back up on the screen the three alternatives, at least in the Trenton portion?
Sure.
Yes, I'll bring the PDF back up. One sec.
How about that one?
Oh, yep.
Well, no, not this. The map, the actual map that has the yes, this one.
Yeah. Okay. The one on the right-hand side has the map.
Right. Just two observations. One, picking up on Lisa's suggestion that Prospect Street is already half pregnant in a sense with striped county lanes, although no buffering. And I would hope that anything that goes on road, particularly in Trenton, have buffering of some sort to protect the passengers. But if you follow Prospect Street on further south, you will see next to Gregory School a rail line that heads out to the West Trenton train station. And that should be kept in mind as a potential other project to which this one could link, because that is, I think, pretty much a straight shot with almost no exceptions, all a single right-of-way that with single owner for future development as a bike trail. Then Calhoun Street, I guess you saw as, it's certainly not aesthetically pleasing, but it's not as densely traveled as some of the others. Could you just tell us who is the ownership of that piece for alternative 3 that runs from the Trenton Ewing line up to Olden Avenue from the so-called Capital City Sports Complex? Yeah, that one.
Yeah, I believe there's multiple owners in that area. It's not one owner.
Yeah, there's multiple owners. U-Haul owns the property closest to Olden Avenue, fronting Olden Avenue.
Right.
The county did get a reservation of land for a future road expansion for the past 20, 30, 40 years. In our master plan, we have had Calhoun Street extension in our master plan, and the city has it in theirs. Ewing has it in theirs. So we are looking at a local concept development study at that extension, connecting Calhoun Street all the way through to pretty much Capitol Plaza, the shopping center, through the U-Haul property. But then there's the Bone property. There's the Capitol Sports Complex.
Right?
Correct. The Beam property. And then there's one more property owner between the Beam property and the sports complex. So it is challenging. It is potentially contaminated. There may be some historical considerations with the Beam property. Um,
And with alternative one, are there any additional complications when you go on what is at least a state numbered route, Pennington Avenue, here from the reservoir down to the monument? Is there an additional layer? Although the state does not maintain that stretch, it is, quote, Route 31.
Right.
It's interesting. Even though it's Route 31, it is under the jurisdiction of the city.
Right.
There was a deal way back ago when
Who
New
paves it?
Hampton, I believe it's the city. Lisa, can you confirm, or I'm not sure if Lisa's still.
I am here. I have to say that that those intricacies are not at my fingertips. Sorry.
No worries.
But I can confirm it tomorrow.
Okay. I'm almost certain that it is under the jurisdiction of the city. Because when we were working on the Parkway project, we had to identify project limits and who we're working with and where things.
And whatever trail or path or routing one takes in the city of Trenton, the county's got to pay for it because the city ain't got no money and isn't going to maintain it. So just consider that as a county bike route. Whatever pieces of this that you acquire or build on.
The county's very good at acquiring grants and going after grants. But I cannot commit to anything at this time.
So, Signor Covello, I guess.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah. So that's a good segue, Jeff, about, this very ambitious and historic project. It's going to cost a lot of money. So I'm a former Main Street board member. We were discussing this years ago, trying to get to this point. So I applaud everybody for this. And I don't know if you're the right person to facilitate it or Matt, because I think the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission is going to have to be at the fulcrum of this. Where's the opportunity for the non-government organizations like the Lawrenceville School, like Main Street, like Ryder, like the Trenton Farmers Market, everybody along these routes to be eligible to help cobble together the amount of money this is going to take, both for acquisition, construction, and partially, to Jeffrey's point, maintenance?
That's a good question. Ultimately, the Lawrence Hopewell Trail is an inspiration. I mean, the board does a really good job in promoting the trail, making sure that the next piece gets funding. They work with the townships, they work with the county. So the LHT really has been a leading example of how to make these things work. We do have David Sandall on the call. He's pushing through. We're almost done with the LHT. It truly is remarkable what 20 years has accomplished. So the LHT is an example of what we could do with the JTT. Ultimately, we are going to want to talk to the Departments of Commerce. We're going to want to talk to everybody, local businesses, residents. We're going to want to talk to, the people that are going to be impacted by the trail and build a foundation, build consensus around what we're going to be doing.
Well, I appreciate that, Matt, but my question was really more to these non-governmental organizations. And Dave's a good friend beyond Hopewell Trail, and I see Becky Taylor's on the call too. But for example, Main Street could be an applicant for NGO funding to go to the portion of this as a beneficiary of it. And I know through all the infrastructure money, they've created tons of new pots. But it seems to me you have a very unique opportunity from 2 universities, a farmer's market, a recognized downtown Main Street, a plethora probably of other nonprofit groups I'm not thinking of right now that could help the county and the Regional Valley Planning Authority find eligible funding for this.
Yeah,
including private funding.
Yeah, John, we've been working on that. We've been talking to the universities. We talked to Lawrenceville School. One of the issues I've raised is the governance of the whole project, because it's got the 4 municipalities in the county, now the state involved. So, what's the mechanism for making that happen? But it would
I'm glad to do it, Dave, but I would strongly recommend that you reach out also specifically to Lawrenceville Main Street.
Yeah, no,
and to the owners,
sure. Yeah.
And the owners of the Trenton Farmers Market. I think
absolutely.
Those are draws for this whole project.
Yep. No, we look forward to you helping us out with that, John.
Glad to do it, Dave.
So if I may, this is Becky. I'd like to say that what about the private sector? Bristol Myers Squibb, Church and Dwight, New Jersey manufacturers. We've got a lot of corporations, Amazon, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah,
Why
absolutely.
don't we start thinking about getting them involved and getting them to support all of this stuff? Because I think this will be good for them. Key point, we have to remember that, and good for everybody else.
So a lot of these bottom-up models work. You have to work a long time to get them to work. A lot of those big companies also already have philanthropic organizations and institutions that they use, that they have charities or so that they've created and they already give money to. The William Penn Foundation out of Philadelphia, which is kind of related to Rahm Haas, chemical company, has been funding opportunities for trails throughout the Philadelphia region, specifically the circuit trails, right? And so William Penn has been one of those partners. They're also few and far between. But the idea for funding and finding I guess a variety of individuals, both public and private, to fund something like this isn't unheard of. But it does take a Herculean effort to go down and start to look at. You could do it; it's perfectly fine. We've only looked at from a feasibility standpoint. Can this trail, go here? Can this trail go here? Can this, and what's the potential constructability of that trail? How feasible really is A, B, or C, or 1, 2, and 3? And so, what this study really is focusing on is identifying the alignment in the south and in the north that would be the best or the locally preferred alternative to go after, to find funding to design.
And I think all the work that you've been doing is awesome, absolutely inspiring, and will ultimately be the key to all of this stuff. But you know what? For these private sector entities, if you don't ask, you will not receive. So maybe next steps later will be putting together a strategy to get them to buy in, support, help own, and build consensus and excitement.
Yeah, well, Becky, you mentioned own, which kind of leads me to something I wanted to talk about. There are two parts to this. There's the constructability and construction of these trails, and then it's funding of future maintenance. Everybody loves a ribbon cutting. Everybody loves a brand new trail. Our biggest problem going forward will most likely be that maintenance aspect. How do we maintain? What is there going to be an organization that's going to own? Is there going to be, divided ownership between the city, the townships, the county, which is the most likely route? I mean, that's how we've been doing the LHT. Finding an organization that's going to own the right of way and maintain this whole thing, that's going to be very difficult. But there's no reason we can't do some kind of adopted trail, get corporate sponsorships, look for William Penn Foundation money, go after federal money. I mean, there's a lot of different avenues we could use.
And I just wanted to recognize a comment in the chat by Kathy Rickard. And yes, thank you, Kathy. The bridge over I-295 is really not focus of this project. Understood that you have environmental concerns, and those concerns will be looked at if that bridge advances.
And the only thing I would say is we need both.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Becky, I mean, the things you did with the LHT, I mean, again, very inspirational for how we could get this thing done.
All I can say is we had no idea what we were getting into.
But honestly, it's the volunteer opportunities. It's, you and Eleanor and David and Leslie and everybody else.
Yep.
We need that kind of advocacy and community support to get these things constructed.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think you've got a lot of people who are very enthusiastic about everything you're doing. So thank you for everything, for all of you, for what you're doing. And I think that there are some great opportunities here. And now that I live in Trenton, I would love to have the LHT move down this way and then down into Bordentown and beyond. Let's connect.
Absolutely.
Isn't that what it is? Lawrence Hopewell Trenton, LHT?
All right. I like it.
Hi, Andrew. How are you?
Remember, Matt, you also have the unique benefit that Mercer County does have a park commission. So you have a lot of ways down the road on the maintenance and operation that you don't have. You have a potential governance structure in place.
It is something we could consider. Absolutely. We're very lucky. We have a boss, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he's supportive of trails. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. So I don't see any other hands, but folks, we scheduled the meeting from 6 to 8. We're going to happily stick around for another 18, 20 minutes. If you do have questions, feel free to raise your hand or jump in, but we would like to kind of keep the questions focused to the alternatives and your comments on the alternatives north and south. Sorry, I didn't mean to kill a party either.
That's okay. Andrew, Matt, thank you.
Hi, Leslie. How are you? Very nice.
I'm good. How are you?
Very nice to see you. I heard your
Good to
voice.
see you too.
Thank you for attending.
My pleasure. Well, this project is near and dear to my heart and my neighborhood.
Few of us can see the trail from our backyards.
Yeah.
I wish.
Does your backyard connect? Did you make a connection?
Oh yeah. I mean,
You did, yeah.
well, we don't have a gate in our fence.
Okay.
Because I don't know if you've walked this part, but there's a sidewalk. And when I say a sidewalk, I mean on our side property line.
Okay.
There's a sidewalk that connects my neighborhood to the neighborhood behind across the trolley line.
Gotcha.
So in fact, we shovel both in front and alongside of our property. And I have a little free library behind my house on the trolley line.
Oh, nice. I probably took a book from it. No.
Well, you might have. But because of that, and because we've lived here for 26 years, I watch the traffic on the trolley line from my kitchen window, from my deck, particularly when there's traffic by the library. But there's people who come from the other neighborhood up. There's people who come from my neighborhood down. There's people who go through on the trolley line. That library is at an intersection of a lot of activity.
Yeah. I think the day that Charlie and I were walking the trail, we noticed that there were a couple of deer walking down the trail as well. And
Yeah.
That was pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yep. So thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Hopefully we can take the next step and expand piece by piece.
I understand the issues of governance. I think, you need to deal with them, but first figure out what's buildable.
Yeah. I mean, really, at the end of the day, that's the question.
Right.
We can do a lot of things, but what's realistic in the short term, medium term?
Yeah.
One of the things about this study that I think is a little bit unique that I haven't experienced, in my years public and private, was the amount of response that we got from people, filling out the survey and attending the meetings, and the virtual meetings. The first meeting, I think we had, over 75 people, attend, and this meeting there, I looked at the high number was about 75 as well, which is a really good turnout for a Wednesday night for the public and so forth. So
Well, once it's all posted, I'll share it with my neighbors.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I think the response and the public feedback is really important for studies like this.
It is.
Can I just ask what kind of feedback you got out of folks here in Trenton?
Specifically, I don't know if I can get, specifically speak to individuals that responded from Trenton, but I do know that individuals from the Trenton Cycling Revolution were, participated in the first event, and they received the idea of the trails and the additional bike lanes positively. They asked us for some maps. They rode the bikes or rode the lanes, the routes, gave us some feedback on, some of the technicalities of the routes. And we kind of incorporated that into the routes themselves. And that's where a lot of those typical sections that Charlie talked about, where we introduced the trail and then the types of different bike lanes and bike facilities on roads, kind of helped, from the public. We got that kind of sense of people are comfortable, at one stage and they're comfortable at another stage, whether they're in the road or off the road and so forth.
Yeah, and I was say I did do a deeper analysis of responses by municipality, and I myself live in Trenton, and I do recall that there was a greater desire, interest in lighting from people who live or work in Trenton. And I think people in Trenton, there is a common safety concern, particularly when off-road.
Went off-road, but on-road safety concern.
Different kind of safety,
to
but yes,
the nth
yes,
degree, right?
Yeah.
Well, you got to remember too, on-road safety is a factor on every street, whether somebody's riding a bicycle or not, and whether or not there is a designated route for that bicycle or not. Especially in the state of New Jersey, when you have the share of the road concept, and especially on the local roads. And there are other programs that the city of Trenton is walking down and taking on. They have a Safe Streets for All funding that they receive from the federal government that they're looking at, and so there's always expanded Vision Zero campaigns to make make those ideas of safety for everybody who is on the road.
Inshallah.
As Andrew mentioned, Trenton Cycling Revolution, Wills Kinsley, we do have a really good working relationship with that group. I mean, they're all over the city. They're out there every single day riding bikes. They're active in the community. And, between all of our projects.
I'm part of it, but it's about a dozen people.
Yeah. So we appreciate the support.
We appreciate your efforts here.
Now, there is something we didn't talk about, and there is an economic development piece to this. We are looking to create a transportation corridor and a recreational corridor, but at the same time, we're trying to foster those economic development connections between the municipalities, get people between job centers, get people from Trenton up to Princeton, Lawrence, Ewing, get people from Princeton down to Trenton. There's state workers, there's private workers. There's opportunities for tourism, getting battle monument to battle monument. We have America 250 coming up. So between tourism, opportunities for small businesses to open up along the trail, things in Lawrenceville downtown, things along the trail in Trenton. There is an economic development piece to this as well. And I don't know if I want to talk about this now, but there is another study that's going to follow up that David is helping lead that will look deeper at those economic development benefits.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We're, as I said, I'm talking to them tomorrow. They've already met with the county economic development director and the tourism director. So trying to get that calibrated, but this sort of study is very helpful to speak to something that, what's in it for me? And if I'm a downtown business, if I want a job someplace, if I'm one of the bigger companies from the community, what benefit will this provide to us? And that also plays into the funding justification. So at least until January 20th, part of what the National Transportation Department was looking for was a benefit cost analysis. So that's something else we'll put on the table of when you build something like this, what are the benefits versus the costs, and what's the payoff to putting public money into it.
On that note of payoffs, David, I guess we can sign off.
Would you rather I'd say ROI, Jeffrey? We can say that too. What's the return on investment, right? And I see the community garage is online. I did see that both Wills Kinsley and Helen Dudar were on a call earlier in the evening. So.
Well, I see we've got about 10 minutes left in the chat.
I was going to say, if there's no comments or questions in the next couple minutes, maybe we can end a few minutes early.
Yeah, wouldn't be bad.
And maybe Anthony, in addition to this being posted on the county website, that you could get back to all the people you had on your invite list and just let them know that it's there once it's there.
Yep, we can certainly. Yeah, once it's posted, we'll send out an email advising everybody.
Okay, and we'll promote it on our socials as well for the Lawrence Hopewell Trail.
Right. Yeah, thank you, David.
Take one more minute.
Well, I think I hate to burst everybody's bubble, but I think because we said it was 6 to 8, we are kind of obligated to maintain it until 8 p.m.
That's fine.
Yeah, sure.
But certainly, the public and anybody that got their questions answered, you don't have to stick around for the next 8 minutes if you have other things to do.
We do.
But we do thank everybody for your time and your patience and your feedback.
Ciao.
Thanks, Jeff. Hey, Spencer, thanks for coming out tonight too. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while.
Absolutely. I appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to see the progress you all have made.
Yeah, well, thank you for this opportunity. It wouldn't be possible at DVRPC.
I feel like this is one of the projects that's very much a embodies what the TCDI grant program is intended to do, is fund these types of projects. So it's worthwhile effort for sure.
We're heavy on the transportation and definitely heavy on the community development. So, but it's funny. Andrew mentioned William Penn Foundation funding. We actually just put out an RFP for the Cross County Trail, which would connect from basically the Johnson Trolley Trail to Rider University, or not Rider University, to Notre Dame, over to Hamilton train station, and ultimately connect to West Windsor and to the Mercer County Park. And that was funded with William Penn Foundation money. So we're going to be selecting a consultant probably in the next 2 weeks and kicking that project off. So on top of the JTT, we are going to be looking at making those extensions all the way to West Windsor. So building out the network, piece at a time. And it's interesting. I grew up in Lawrence Township. And in the southern part of the township, there's really no way to get to parks. I mean, you really have to get in a car, drive to Mercer Meadows, or drive up to, that part of the township past 295 and park your car and use the trails. There really wasn't an opportunity from the southern part of Lawrence. So making these connections, it's going to be really, really helpful and transformative for the community.
A quick question while we're winding down these last few minutes. How would you imagine the next phase getting advanced and funded in terms of preliminary engineering, I guess?
For the JTT? Most likely, we're going to try to piece it. We're going to look at the most constructible pieces, or we're going to look at the funding sources. If there's funding sources that are appropriate for different trail segments, we'd advance, trails with that. Or we'd look at, specific trail segments to advance with what we have currently. So it definitely won't be the whole thing. It's not like the southern segment will be contract A and the northern segment will be contract B. We're most likely looking at pieces we can break up into smaller chunks. Trenton might actually be one of the easier routes. A lot of that's going to be on road, even though you're talking about miles and miles of on-road, off-road.
If Prospect becomes the preferred alternative, yeah, then you're talking about an easier process, because some of a lot of it could just be line striping, pavement markings,
88 ramps.
88 ramps and so forth, right? I was going to say intersection improvements, and then connecting to existing facilities. So there may be trails like this have to be built in segments, like Matt said, and they're not all going to be built at once. And so wayfinding is important, and signage is important when you're constructing separate segments of trails.
Yeah, on the northern segment, we're going to probably start approaching property owners and reach out to Terhune, reach out to some of the property owners that are going to be impacted. Now that we have these alternatives kind of sketched out, it's not a chicken or egg scenario. Now we kind of know where we're going to be going, so we can start approaching property owners and start talking about feasibility of these trails.
Hey Matt, can I bring my golf clubs on my back to make it to a golf course somewhere?
Depends. You have an electric bike or a regular bike, Sonny?
So I think, Sonny, if you use a pony to carry your golf bag, you're okay.
No golf carts on the trail, Sonny.
Oh, come on.
Is it electric?
Well, the cart is, I'm not sure the battery is going to last for 4 hours.
You know what? It's interesting though.
Like it's part of your fleet transition. I mean,
my wife's family lives in Delaware, and they've built these retirement communities, and everybody just gets around everywhere in a golf cart. Like they go play pickleball, they go to the tennis, the courts, they go to the store. They have trails all throughout their community, just connecting everything.
So you're saying I should move to Delaware? Is that what you're telling me?
Probably beats Florida.
Oh dear, that's never going to happen.
Or you can stay in beautiful Mercer County.
Hey, I love it.
We don't want you to leave, Sonny.
Thank you, Lisa. You can see the love. At least Lisa is being honest. Matt is trying to kick me out of here.
Never, Sonny. You got to stay for the next 20 years.
Oh.
You got to set up the golf outings, remember.
Come again?
You got to set up all the golf outings.
Oh man.
Kathy Rickard in the comments says just please keep the environment as a concern. Wetlands are off limits.
We would definitely take that into consideration. It's 7:59. So let's say thank you again to everybody for attending our meeting tonight, taking time out of your busy schedules. Thank you to Andrew and Charlie for a great presentation. We're excited to have the project enter its next stages and collect more feedback. Please fill out those feedback forms. Let me know if you can't access the forms or if there's problems. As Andrew and Charlie mentioned, we will have a public comment period for, I believe, a little over 30 days. It's going to be end of March that we're going to wrap that up. And then we're going to prepare the final report, deliverables, and put everything on the website. So again, if anyone has more ideas or concerns that come up after the meeting, please feel free to reach out to us at any time. I believe my email should be up on the county site. And again, we have the feedback form. So thank you all and have a wonderful rest of your night. And again, please reach out.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Thanks,
All right.
everyone.
Everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.